The goals are easy to look at, but sometimes you see him dropping deep, getting the ball on the half-term and setting up the attack and then getting on the end of it to score goals. And that will be really attractive to Amorim.
Very attractive.
Amorim has finally got his man. Matheus Cunha is officially a Manchester United player. It's the first of the players he said he needed to bring in. But Adam, what do you make of the transfer? It's a big price tag too.
It's a lot of money, and I wonder how Manchester United are getting around PSR with this one. This is a big question mark. How on earth are they able to keep spending this kind of money? But that's a question mark for another day. I think it is a good signing, ultimately. He does a few things very, very well, and those few things that he does very, very well are exactly what Ruben Amorim wants. I think the first thing is he's adaptable. He thinks on his feet. He works well when the situation in games changes, and I think that's something Amorim has spoken directly about and also obliquely about in interviews, is he wants players to be a bit more adaptable on the pitch. And I think one of the biggest weaknesses, and we've said this for a while about Manchester United, and Amorim certainly knows it, is that there are too many players who can only play in one way in his team and don't develop as a game develops and progresses. So I think that's what he does really well. When I was looking at his numbers this season for Wolves, he was, if not one of the biggest overperformers in terms of XG. I hate XG. I don't massively like digging too far into the stats, but I think when someone's showing that kind of consistency in a side like Wolves, who were battling relegation for much of the season, you have to pay attention to that kind of number. This is a great player in a pretty poor team. So I think that's the other thing. And the last point for me I would make about him is the way that he plays for Wolves and the role he plays in the team as a number 10 is exactly what Ruben Amorim has always looked for in a number 10. That kind of linking between the midfield and the attack. Who knows who the starting striker is going to be for Manchester United next season, but if it is a target man or an out-and-out true striker, if he sticks with Højlund or goes and signs someone else, this is the guy who can link the two together. We saw that at Sporting as well in the long period that Ruben Amorim was there. This guy plays in the way that a number 10 plays in an Amorim team, and I think that's why he's been willing to spend so much money on him.
Yeah, Manchester United fans will say they've lacked match winners. He seems to be that. You mentioned there, the goals are easy to look at, but sometimes you see him dropping deep, getting the ball on the half-term and setting up the attack and then getting on the end of it to score goals. Yeah, and that will be really attractive to Amorim. Very
attractive. Amorim also likes players who can muck in defensively. He does that a little bit. His defensive numbers, not the best. He is an attacking player ultimately, but he does go back. He does track back a little bit. I think on the negative side, and I've spoken to a few Manchester United fans in the last couple of days, what do you think about Cunha? The first thing they've gone to, and this is something that I thought about as well, was his temperament. There was a couple of times in the season where there was heads gone moments. There was a sending off, was it Kirkes, where he got sent off against Bournemouth. There was that incident against Ipswich when he was getting involved with one of the security staff for Ipswich. So that is something that for me would be a little bit of a red flag. Proven, I'm not saying necessarily this was a reason not to sign him, but that's something that Amorim's going to have to be careful to manage over the next season or so, because obviously Manchester United are a club that everyone else loves to beat, everyone else loves to play against, and you're going to have to deal with a little bit of aggravation from opposing teams. And if that's the kind of behaviour that comes out of him when he is pushed against a wall, what we saw against Kirkes and what we saw to that Ipswich security guard, I think he took his glasses off, didn't he, or something like that. That for me is a little bit of a red flag. Is this someone who, when push comes to shove, is going to react with a bit of a red flag? That could be an issue.
Given Manchester United, they're used to having someone in there who likes a bit of feistiness. But look, Adam, on a few fronts there, price tag, goals he's delivered in the Premier League this season, how he'll fit Amorim's system. What do you give this transfer out of 10?
I'd give it an A. I think this is a really good move, presuming they're able to work through the financial rules in football these days and the PSR. If it's allowed, which it seems to be, then I think this is a player that will make this team better. And he is the kind of player that Ruben Amorim, if he's going to do the big rebuild that we're hearing he's going to do over the summer, these are the kind of signings he's going to have to make. You need to sign difference makers. We've put a starting 11 together where we think he'll fit into that team. That's exactly where he'll go. Perhaps alongside Diallo in that attacking midfield role, linking up the midfield with Rasmus Højlund or whoever plays in that number 9 role. And I think he'll work well as well with Bruno Fernandes. If Fernandes sticks around, I know there's some question marks over his future. But Amorim wants difference makers because he's got a lot of players in that team who don't really make much difference at all.
Well, look, just while we've been on air today, we've seen Manchester United linked with Mbeumo, another player who's going to be expensive, had a good season at Brentford. But where else do you think they need to strengthen? Because it does look as if Fernandes could potentially be on the way out. So there's a few places he'll need to bring some more bodies in.
Well, just quickly on Mbeumo, I think that would be another good transfer. I would question that perhaps from the player's perspective, because he's obviously had a brilliant time of it for Brentford. He's been brilliant with Yoane Wissa. And I've loved watching him in a Brentford shirt. He's scored a lot of early goals, so maybe he'll give that to Manchester United. But you would think from a player, particularly at his age, he'd want to be going to someone who's playing in the Champions League. He's certainly good enough. I know he was linked with Newcastle. He was linked with some of the other top 6 clubs. And I would be surprised. I know Manchester United, you know, even with the troubles that they've had in the past few seasons, still carry this weight internationally, and players do still want to go to Old Trafford, clearly. But he's a guy who could be playing in the Champions League and could be succeeding in the Champions League. And I would be interested to see why, you know, when he's asked why he chose Manchester United over some of the clubs competing at the, you know, the very top of European football, why he made that choice.
Do you think Manchester United will find this window more difficult than they thought? Do you think they still have that pulling power of the teams who are in the Champions League? Or do you think the history of Manchester United is starting to wane a bit for players?
Well, clearly the fact that they're able to sign Cunha, and if they get Mbeumo, they still will be able to sign great players in a way that other clubs who finish in those kind of positions in the Premier League and don't win a trophy certainly can't do. But I think that this is an important summer for Manchester United, and it's very important that they finally start to get it right in the transfer market, because you have to say over the past 5 years with the various managers they've had, they've kept getting it wrong. And I think Ruben Amorim will be given the opportunity. Obviously, we're hearing all the noises that he will get the summer and the start of next season, and this is a long-term project. But if he gets this wrong, he's going to be under a lot of pressure at the start of next season, because the fans are growing tired of what they're seeing.
We see with teams like Villa, the financial aspect. You'd imagine it's going to be a busy summer of Manchester United. They'll need to get a few out to bring in these players.
Well, I mean, all the talk from Amorim has been of a proper rebuild, and that means signing 3, 4, 5 players who can make a real difference to the first team. So I think, you know, we've got a couple, well, one who's pretty much over the line, one as a potential in Mbeumo, but I think he's going to go a lot further than that. He's going to be looking for a goalkeeper. Rasmus Højlund, is he good enough as a striker for Manchester United who want to be competing, getting back into the Champions League? There's other positions where they need to improve.